The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none quite as dangerous as the hunters. For centuries, they had moved through the cosmos like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Their massive ships, each the size of a small moon, cast shadows across star systems as they searched for their next prey. Today, their scanners had picked up something new: a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. Commander Redscale stood on the bridge of his scout ship, his scaled hide reflecting the soft glow of the monitoring screens. His species had evolved from the apex predators of their homeworld, and that heritage showed in every aspect of their appearance. Rows of sharp teeth lined their mouths, and powerful muscles rippled beneath their armored skin. But it was their intelligence that made them truly deadly, the perfect combination of brutal strength and cunning minds. Another primitive world, he growled to his crew, looking at the initial scans of Earth. The readings showed cities, basic technology, and countless potential Neils walking about on two legs. The hunters had seen it all before, on thousands of worlds across 3 galaxies. Every time, the story ended the same way, with the hunters feasting and adding another species to their long list of conquests. The scout ship's sensors continued gathering data, building a complete picture of humanity's capabilities. Redscale noticed something odd about these creatures. They seemed to be everywhere on their planet, adapting to nearly every environment. From frozen wastelands to scorching deserts, these humans had built their homes in places that should have been impossible to inhabit. "Interesting," he muttered, leaning closer to the display. "They're soft, no natural weapons to speak of. No claws, no significant teeth, thin skin." He paused, flicking through more data. "But they've spread everywhere. How have they survived this long?" His second-in-command, a battle-scarred veteran named Stripe, moved to join him at the display. "Look at these readings, Commander. They're using tools. Primitive ones, but tools nonetheless." Redscale dismissed this with a wave of his clawed hand. "Many species use tools before we hunt them. It makes no difference in the end." But something kept nagging at the back of his mind. There was something different about these humans, something he couldn't quite put his claw on. The scout ship continued its silent observation for several days, gathering more information about Earth's defenses and capabilities. They watched as humans moved about in their vehicles, built their structures, and went about their daily lives, completely unaware of the predators studying them from above. What puzzled Redscale most was their behavior. Unlike other prey species that stuck to their safe zones, humans seemed to actively seek out danger. Their scanning devices picked up humans climbing treacherous mountains, diving into deep oceans, and even launching themselves into space in primitive rockets. "Commander," Stripe called out one day, "you need to see this." The display showed humans engaging in something the hunters had never seen before. They were deliberately making themselves stronger, pushing their bodies beyond their natural limits in something the data identified as exercise and sports. Redscale's facial scales shifted in confusion. They deliberately strained themselves. For what purpose? This behavior didn't match anything in their extensive database of conquered species. Prey species typically conserved energy, staying safe until danger forced them to act. These humans seemed to invite challenge. As the days passed, more peculiarities emerged. Humans appeared to have an unusual social structure. They fought among themselves constantly, yet also displayed remarkable cooperation when needed. They had weapons that could destroy their entire planet, yet they hadn't used them on each other despite numerous conflicts. They were simultaneously fragile and resilient, peaceful and warlike, primitive and innovative. Following standard protocol, Redscale prepared his report for the hunter hive mind. But for the first time in his long career, he found himself struggling to categorize a species. Were they prey or something else? Their physical capabilities suggested they would be easy targets, yet something about their behavior suggested otherwise. "Prey species, humans," he dictated into the report. "Physical capabilities: limited. Natural weapons: none. Technology level: Early spacefaring. Threat assessment. Minimal. He paused before adding, recommended approach, standard conquest protocol. But as he sent the report, Red Scale felt an unfamiliar sensation. Doubt. In all his years of scouting for the hunters, he had never encountered a species quite like humans. They seemed almost designed to survive against all odds, adapting and overcoming challenges that would have wiped out other species. Looking down at the blue planet one last time before departing, Red Scale made a decision that would later prove fateful. He added a small note to his report. Exercise caution. Subject species displays unusual characteristics. It wasn't much, but it was the first time in hunter history that a commander had suggested anything other than immediate conquest. As the scout ship turned away from Earth to rejoin the main hunter fleet, Red Scale couldn't shake the feeling that they might be underestimating these humans. The thought was ridiculous, of course. The hunters had conquered species far more advanced, far more powerful than these soft, clawless creatures. Yet something about humans suggested they might not follow the usual pattern of prey species. The stars streaked past as the ship entered faster than light travel, carrying its report back to the hunter hive mind. Soon, the massive invasion fleet would arrive, following the same pattern that had worked for thousands of years across countless worlds. Red Scale told himself that this would be just another conquest, just another species added to their long list of victories. But deep in his predator's heart, a new feeling stirred, the first faint whisper of fear. These humans, with their strange ways and their ability to thrive anywhere, might prove to be more than simple prey. As his ship disappeared into the darkness of space, Red Scale couldn't know that he had just encountered the one species in the galaxy capable of challenging the hunter's supremacy. The first piece in a galaxy-changing conflict had been moved, and the countdown to humanity's greatest challenge had begun. Soon, the hunters would learn that being the apex predator of 3 galaxies meant nothing when faced with a species that had spent its entire existence adapting, surviving, and overcoming every obstacle in its path. The Hunter Assessment Fleet arrived in Earth's solar system 3 months after Red Scale's initial report. 5 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel behind Jupiter's orbit, their dark hulls absorbing the distant sunlight. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent, a force that had never failed to subdue any species they encountered. The assessment fleet's commander, Battlemaster Greenclaw, reviewed Red Scale's report with growing irritation. The scout commander's warning about exercising caution seemed foolish now that Greenclaw saw the primitive state of human technology. Their satellites were crude, their space stations tiny, and their weapons primitive by hunter standards. "Begin the standard assessment procedure," Greenclaw ordered, his voice carrying across the command center. "Send in the probes. Let's see how these humans react to a proper display of power." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, launching dozens of sleek, black probes toward Earth. These devices had terrorized countless civilizations before, designed to demonstrate the futility of resistance. The first probe entered Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. Greenclaw watched the feed with bored interest, expecting the usual panic and chaos that accompanied first contact. Instead, something unprecedented happened. A human aircraft intercepted the probe, matching its speed and maneuvers with surprising skill. "Impossible," Greenclaw muttered, leaning forward in his command chair. The human aircraft was clearly inferior technology, yet its pilot was compensating through sheer skill and determination. Before he could process this anomaly, the human pilot did something even more shocking. They shot down the probe. Similar reports began flooding in from around the planet. Human military forces were responding with remarkable speed and coordination. Their weapons might be primitive, but they were using them with devastating effectiveness. More probes were falling from the sky, each one shot down by humans who seemed to have prepared for this very situation. "How are they doing this?" Greenclaw demanded, his scales bristling with anger. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They shouldn't even be able to detect our probes, let alone destroy them." His crew worked frantically to analyze the situation, but the answers they found only deepened the mystery. The humans weren't just lucky. They were prepared. Their militaries had trained for scenarios just like this, something no other species had ever done before. They had movies, books, and games about alien invasions, having spent decades imagining and planning for this very moment. While other species had cowered in fear at first contact, humans had been getting ready. Green Claw received another shocking report. Humans were already analyzing the debris from the fallen probes. Their scientists were working with incredible speed, taking apart the advanced technology and beginning to understand its principles. What should have taken years, they were accomplishing in hours. "Send in the second wave," Green Claw ordered, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty that no hunter commander had ever shown before. "Full stealth mode. Let's see them handle something they can't even see." The second wave of probes launched, using the hunters' most advanced cloaking technology. But the humans had another surprise waiting. Their radar systems, while primitive, were numerous and varied. What one type missed, another detected. The humans had built overlapping defense systems, learning from their own wars that no single system was perfect. They weren't looking for advanced alien ships. They were looking for anything unusual, and they found it. The second wave of probes fell just like the first. Human pilots seemed to get better with each engagement, learning and adapting to hunter technology in real time. They were sharing information globally, each victory teaching them more about their enemy's capabilities. Green Claw paced the command deck, his claws clicking against the metal floor. Nothing in his centuries of experience had prepared him for this. The humans weren't just resisting. They were learning, adapting, and getting stronger with each passing hour. Their primitive weapons were being modified on the fly, their tactics evolving at an alarming rate. "Pull back all remaining probes," he finally ordered. "Prepare a full report for the hive mind." His crew stared at him in shock. No hunter commander had ever retreated from an assessment mission. But Green Claw had seen enough to know that this situation was different. Red Scale's warning hadn't gone far enough. As the assessment fleet gathered data for their report, they detected something else. Humans were launching their own primitive spacecraft toward the hunter positions. These crude vessels posed no threat to the massive hunter warships, but their very presence was unprecedented. No species had ever dared to counterattack during an assessment. The human ships weren't trying to fight. They were observing, learning, gathering data just as the hunters had done to them. Green Claw watched in disbelief as these tiny vessels maneuvered around his fleet, their crews seemingly unafraid of the galaxy's most feared predators. "These humans," he wrote in his report to the hive mind, "display characteristics unlike any species we have encountered. Their technology is primitive, but their ability to adapt and overcome challenges exceeds anything in our records. They appear to have built their entire civilization around the concept of facing and defeating superior forces." He added footage of human children playing war games, soldiers training, and scientists working round the clock to understand the probe technology. Each image showed the same thing. Humans weren't just ready for a fight. They had spent their entire history preparing for it. As the assessment fleet prepared to depart, Green Claw made a decision that would change the course of hunter history. He classified humans not as prey, but as a potential threat. It was the first time any species had been given this designation before the main invasion began. The massive ships turned away from Earth, their engines flaring bright against the darkness of space. Behind them, humanity continued its preparations, their determination growing stronger with each passing moment. They had faced their first test against an alien threat, and they had passed it with flying colors. What the hunters couldn't understand, was that they had just given humanity exactly what it needed. Proof that they weren't alone in the universe, and a reason to unite against a common enemy. As Green Claw's fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Earth was already changing, adapting, preparing for what they knew would come next. The assessment was complete, but its results were like nothing the hunters had ever seen before. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they had found a species that didn't just fight back. It thrived on the challenge. The real test was yet to come, and neither side fully understood just how much everything was about to change. The Hunter invasion fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 50 massive warships, each carrying enough firepower to turn Earth's surface to glass, took up attack positions around the planet. At their head was the flagship of High Commander Black Fang, the most decorated warrior in Hunter history. Black Fang stood on his command deck, his black scales gleaming under the harsh lights. He had personally led the conquest of over 30 worlds, and Earth would be no different. The reports from Red Scale and Green Claw seemed laughable now in the face of such overwhelming force. "Launch the first wave," Black Fang commanded. Standard extinction protocol. Thousands of fighter craft poured from the Hunter ships, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Behind them came the transport ships carrying ground troops, ready to begin the harvest once the orbital defenses were crushed. But Earth wasn't defenseless. In the months since the assessment fleet's departure, humans had been busy. They had studied the wreckage of the probe ships, reverse-engineered what they could, and prepared their defenses. As the Hunter fighters approached, they faced something unprecedented: a unified human response. The first surprise came when the Hunter ships entered range of Earth's orbital defenses. Instead of the primitive projectile weapons they expected, they faced energy weapons rebuilt from the probe technology. Hundreds of Hunter fighters disappeared in balls of plasma fire, their advanced shields useless against weapons copied from their own technology. "Impossible," Black Fang roared as the reports came in. They couldn't have developed these weapons so quickly. But the evidence was clear on his screens. Humans hadn't just studied the probe technology. They had improved it. The second shock came from Earth's fighters. Human pilots flew their craft with insane bravery and skill, using maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. What they lacked in advanced technology, they made up for with cunning and determination. Hunter pilots, used to easy victories, found themselves outmaneuvered by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. "They're attacking in formations we've never seen," reported the tactical officer, his scales pale with concern. "Their tactics make no sense, yet they're working." The humans were using strategies developed over centuries of fighting each other, approaches that the Hunters, with their history of easy victories, had never needed to develop. Black Fang ordered the second wave forward, confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm the human defenses. But humans had another surprise waiting. Their ground-based weapons had been modified with reverse-engineered Hunter technology, creating a defensive screen that filled space with deadly fire. The battle in Earth's orbit became a chaos of light and explosion. Hunter ships, designed for overwhelming force, found themselves caught in carefully planned kill zones. Human fighters darted between their larger ships, causing confusion and breaking up their formations. Every passing minute seemed to bring new human tactics, as if they were learning and adapting in the middle of combat. "Launch the ground invasion," Black Fang ordered, determined to end this fight through sheer force. Transport ships began their descent through Earth's atmosphere, carrying the Hunters' most feared ground troops. These warriors had never failed to conquer a planet's surface. But humans had prepared for this too. The transports faced a wall of fire from ground defenses. Those that made it through found their landing zones turned into death traps. Human soldiers, despite their physical weakness, fought with devastating effectiveness. They had spent their entire history killing things bigger and stronger than themselves. In orbit, the battle took another unexpected turn. Human ships began using Earth's moon as a staging ground, launching attacks from hidden bases on its surface. The Hunters found their sophisticated sensors confused by simple tricks: clouds of debris, decoy signals, and constantly shifting formations. "This isn't possible," Black Fang muttered as another wing of his fighters disappeared in a coordinated human attack. "They're primitive. They're prey. How are they doing this?" But he knew the answer. Humans weren't fighting like prey. They were fighting like predators. The tide turned decisively when humans revealed their masterstroke. Hidden nuclear weapons, placed in orbit disguised as debris, detonated in the midst of the hunter fleet. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the massive ships, but they disrupted their shield harmonics, a weakness humans had discovered by studying the probe wreckage. In the confusion that followed, human forces struck with everything they had. Fighter craft slipped through disabled shields, targeting crucial systems with surgical precision. Ground-based weapons fired through the gaps, causing devastating damage to ships that had never been truly threatened before. Black Fang watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by creatures that had only just reached space. The impossible was happening. The hunters were losing. Full retreat, he finally ordered, his voice heavy with shock. All ships, emergency withdrawal. It was the first retreat order ever given by a hunter high commander. As his surviving ships fled into faster-than-light travel, Black Fang knew that everything had changed. The humans had done more than survive. They had won. In a single battle, they had accomplished what no other species had managed in 10,000 years. They had driven back the hunters, proving that the galaxy's most feared predators could be beaten. As Black Fang's flagship limped away from Earth, he recorded a final message to the hunter hive mind. "We have encountered something new," he reported. "Not prey, but equals. Perhaps even our superiors. The humans don't just fight. They excel at it. They live for it. We must rethink everything we thought we knew about warfare." Behind his retreating fleet, Earth celebrated its victory. But humans, true to their nature, weren't content to simply defend. They had captured several intact hunter ships, and their scientists were already taking them apart, learning their secrets. The next time the hunters came, humanity would be even stronger. The stars watched silently as the remnants of the hunter fleet disappeared into the darkness. The galaxy's greatest predators had just learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous creature isn't the one with the sharpest claws, but the one with the strongest will to win. The captured hunter ships proved to be a treasure trove of information. Human scientists worked day and night in secure facilities around the world, decoding the alien computer systems and translating their vast databases. What they discovered sent shockwaves through every level of human society. Dr. James Miller stood in front of the main display screen at the United Earth Defense Command, his face pale as he presented his team's findings to the assembled military and political leaders. The Hunter database told a story that was both terrifying and infuriating. Earth wasn't chosen at random, he explained, pointing to a star map that showed thousands of worlds marked in different colors. The hunters have been systematically eliminating potential rival species for over 10,000 years. Any civilization that shows signs of becoming a threat is wiped out before they can develop the means to fight back. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The hunters hadn't just been conquering worlds. They had been carefully managing the evolution of the entire galaxy, ensuring that no species could ever challenge their dominance. Earth had been on their list for centuries, marked for destruction as soon as humans showed signs of advancing beyond their planet. But they made a mistake with us, Miller continued, changing the display to show Earth's solar system. They'd waited too long. By the time they decided to strike, we had already established bases on Mars, the Moon, and several asteroids. We had spread too far to be easily contained. The captured data revealed more shocking details. The hunters had watched humanity's development for generations, monitoring their wars and technological progress. They had seen humans split the atom, reach the moon, and develop computers. But they had misinterpreted what they saw, viewing each advancement as merely the random progress of a primitive species. They didn't understand what they were seeing, Miller explained. Where they saw primitive creatures stumbling upon discoveries, they should have seen a pattern of constant innovation. Every human conflict, every challenge we faced, made us stronger and more adaptable. In the weeks that followed, more revelations emerged from the hunter databases. The aliens had cataloged thousands of species, ranking them by their potential threat level. Humans had initially been classified as minimal risk, their physical limitations and constant internal conflicts seen as signs of weakness. The hunters had never considered that these very challenges were forging humanity into something unprecedented. The databases also revealed the locations of other surviving species, those the hunters had deemed too primitive or too weak to be worth eliminating. Many of these civilizations were far more technologically advanced than humans in some areas, but all of them shared one characteristic. They had developed in relatively peaceful environments, never facing the kinds of challenges that had shaped human evolution. "We thought we were behind," Miller told the command staff in a later briefing. "But in many ways, we were ahead. Our technology might be newer, but our understanding of warfare, our ability to adapt and overcome, these are things the other species never had to develop." The hunters killed any species that showed signs of developing these traits until they found us. The most crucial discovery came from the hunter ship's navigational computers. Earth wasn't just another target. It was one of the last potential threats the hunters had identified in 3 galaxies. They had been systematically working their way down a list, and humanity was nearly at the bottom. "They thought they were being thorough," Miller explained, "but their very thoroughness gave us time. While they were eliminating other species, we were developing, advancing, fighting our own battles, and learning from each one. By the time they got to us, we had become something they had never encountered before." Human military strategists began analyzing the hunter battle tactics, finding them surprisingly rigid and predictable. The hunters had relied on overwhelming force for so long that they had lost the ability to adapt and innovate. Their technology was incredibly advanced, but they used it in ways that showed a fundamental lack of creativity. The captured ships also revealed something that gave humanity hope. The hunters weren't as unified as they appeared. Their hive mind was more of a communication network than true unity, and there were signs of disagreement and discord among their leadership. They had never faced a serious challenge to their dominance, and that lack of challenge had made them vulnerable. "We have an opportunity here," Miller concluded in his final presentation. "The hunters didn't just underestimate our current capabilities. They fundamentally misunderstood what humanity is capable of becoming. They saw our wars as weakness, our divisions as flaws, our constant striving as pointless struggle. They never realized that these very things are what make us strong." As humanity digested these revelations, a new sense of purpose spread across Earth and its colonies. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to end a system of galactic genocide that had gone on for far too long. The hunters had appointed themselves the guardians of evolution, eliminating any species they deemed a potential threat. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock, combining hunter technology with human innovation. Each captured ship provided new insights, new technologies to adapt and improve. Humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn from and build upon the discoveries of others, proved to be the perfect counter to the hunters' rigid technological superiority. The final piece of data from the hunter ships was perhaps the most important: the location of their homeworld and their major fleet bases. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the hunters faced an enemy who knew where to find them, who understood their weaknesses, and who had the will to fight back. As Earth's leaders began planning their response, a message was broadcast to every human settlement and military base. It wasn't a call for revenge or a declaration of war. It was a simple statement of fact. For 10,000 years, the hunters have decided which species live and which die. That ends now. The stars seemed to shine brighter that night, as if they too were ready for a change. Humanity had discovered its true place in the galaxy, not as prey or even as predators, but as protectors. The hunters had spent millennia ensuring no species could challenge them, only to find that in doing so, they had given humanity the time it needed to become their worst nightmare. The next phase of the conflict would not be about survival. It would be about liberation. Earth's factories began producing ships combining human ingenuity with hunter technology. The time had come to show the galaxy's oldest predators that they had finally met their match. 6 months after discovering the truth about the hunters, humanity launched its counteroffensive. The combined fleet of Earth left the solar system with technology that would have seemed like magic just a year ago. 500 ships, each combining the best of human innovation with captured hunter technology, jumped into faster-than-light travel toward their first target. Admiral Robert Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom, watching as his fleet prepared for their first major offensive operation. The target was a hunter-forward base, one they had used to launch countless attacks on helpless civilizations. The hunters never expected to defend it. No species had ever dared to attack them before. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, their months of training showing in every movement. They had practiced this attack countless times in simulations, but now it was real. The hunter base came into view as the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was massive, a sprawling complex of docking stations and weapon platforms that had served as a staging ground for genocide. The hunters had only left a small garrison to defend it, never imagining they would need more. "Launch the first wave," Stone ordered, but this was no ordinary attack. The human fleet had been built around a simple principle: unpredictability. Each ship carried different weapons, used different tactics, operated in ways the hunters had never seen before. The hunter defenders responded with their standard tactics, launching fighters in rigid formations. They expected the human ships to break and run, like every other species they had ever fought. Instead, the human fleet split into smaller groups, each executing different attack patterns that seemed chaotic but were carefully planned. "They're trying to adapt to our attack pattern," Stone's tactical officer reported with a grim smile. "But we don't have just one pattern." This was humanity's greatest advantage: their ability to change tactics on the fly, to think creatively in the middle of battle. The first wave of human ships broke through the hunters' outer defenses using weapons the aliens had never seen before. Human engineers hadn't just copied hunter technology. They had reimagined it, combined it in ways the hunters had never considered. Plasma weapons fired in patterns that overwhelmed shields, electronic warfare systems confused their targeting, and human pilots flew with a mix of trained skill and natural instinct that the hunters couldn't predict. "Second wave, begin your attack runs," Stone commanded. The battle was following their plan, but not because they were executing preset maneuvers. Each ship captain had been given objectives, but was free to achieve them in their own way. The result was controlled chaos that the hunters couldn't counter. The hunter base's commanders tried to coordinate their defense, but they faced a problem they had never encountered. Every time they adapted to one human tactic, the humans were already switching to something new. It was like fighting an enemy that learned and evolved in the middle of battle. "They're sending out a distress call," reported the communications officer. Stone nodded. This was expected. Part of their plan was to draw more hunter forces into the fight. The more ships the hunters committed to this battle, the fewer they would have to defend other targets. The battle turned decisively when human boarding parties reached the base. Unlike the hunters, who relied on brute force and natural weapons, human Marines wore powered armor suits that enhanced their natural abilities. They fought smart, using tactics developed over centuries of warfare and adapted for space combat. "The base's main reactor is under our control," came the report from the Marine commander. "Their internal defenses are down." The hunters, used to being the strongest warriors in any fight, found themselves outmaneuvered by creatures they had dismissed as physically weak. Stone watched as more hunter ships arrived to reinforce the base, falling right into humanity's trap. Each new hunter ship that arrived faced weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter their standard responses. The humans had studied their enemies well and prepared accordingly. "Begin Phase 3, Stone ordered. This was the most ambitious part of their plan. Human scientists had developed a way to hack into hunter communication systems, using their own hive mind network against them. As the signal went out, confusion spread through the hunter fleet. The hunters had never imagined that their prey could turn their own technology against them so effectively. Their ships began receiving conflicting orders, their carefully coordinated defenses falling into disarray. Some ships started firing on their own allies, unable to distinguish friend from foe through the electronic warfare. Hunter fleet is in full retreat, tactical reported after 3 hours of intense combat. The base, once a symbol of hunter dominance, was now under human control. But Stone knew this was just the beginning. They hadn't just captured a base, they had proven that humanity could take the fight to the hunters. As his crews secured their victory, Stone received reports from across the base. Human engineers were already studying new hunter technology, finding ways to improve it. Scientists were downloading databases containing information about other hunter targets. Intelligence officers were mapping supply lines and communication networks. "Send word to Earth," Stone ordered. "Operation Breakthrough is a success. We've established our first foothold." But he knew the real message was bigger than just military victory. Humanity had proven they could beat the hunters at their own game, and beat them badly. The human fleet took up defensive positions around their captured prize, ready for the counterattack they knew would come. But they had changed the game forever. The hunters were no longer the unopposed predators of the galaxy. They had finally met a species that could outthink them, outfight them, and beat them. As Stone looked out at the stars from his new command post on the captured base, he couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that couldn't be ignored. The hunters would learn what countless human adversaries had learned throughout history, that humans were at their most dangerous when someone told them they couldn't do something. The counterattack had begun, and with it, the balance of power in 3 galaxies had shifted. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to reshape the galaxy into something better. The hunters had spent millennia being the apex predators of space, but they were about to learn that there was something far more dangerous than mere predators. Humans were the cause worth fighting for. 3 years after humanity's first counterattack, the final battle for the galaxy's future took place in orbit around the hunter homeworld. The massive human fleet, now numbering thousands of ships, faced the combined might of the hunter species. Commander Redscale, who had first discovered Earth, watched from his command ship as the human armada approached. "They're not using any of the tactics from our previous encounters," he reported to the hunter leadership. In the years since that first scouting mission, he had become the foremost expert on human warfare, having survived more battles against them than any other hunter commander. "They're doing something new. Again." The human fleet moved in formations that made no sense to hunter tactical computers. Their ships seemed to be deliberately exposing weaknesses, creating gaps in their lines that any hunter commander would normally exploit. But Redscale had learned the hard way that apparent human weaknesses were often traps. "Do not engage directly," he warned the hunter fleet. "They want us to attack those gaps." But the hunter leadership, desperate to end the human threat once and for all, ignored his warning. They had gathered every ship, every warrior, every weapon they had left. Surely their superior numbers would prevail. The trap was sprung the moment the hunter fleet moved to attack. The gaps in the human formation weren't weaknesses, they were firing lanes. Hidden among the human ships were new weapons, products of 3 years of constant innovation and adaptation. Beams of energy unlike anything the hunters had ever seen cut through their front lines. They've weaponized their faster-than-light drives, Redscale realized with a mix of horror and admiration. The humans had taken the very technology that allowed space travel and turned it into a weapon. Ships caught in the beams simply ceased to exist, their matter scattered across multiple dimensions. But this was just the first of humanity's surprises. As the hunter fleet reeled from the initial attack, the human ships began their real assault. Each vessel carried different weapons, used different tactics. Some fired conventional weapons, others deployed electronic warfare. Some rammed straight through hunter ships using advanced shields, while others launched swarms of autonomous drones. "They're not fighting as a single force," Redscale reported, watching the battle unfold. "Every ship, every squadron is fighting its own way, but somehow it all works together." This was humanity's greatest strength, their ability to be different yet united, chaotic yet coordinated. The hunter hive mind, which had coordinated their species' actions for millennia, proved to be their greatest weakness. Humans had learned to hack into their communication networks, sending false orders and confusing signals. The very unity that had made the hunters strong now made them vulnerable. Red Scale watched as the mighty hunter fleet, the force that had terrorized 3 galaxies, began to break apart. Human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking from unexpected angles, using weapons and tactics that changed with every engagement. The hunters tried to adapt, but they couldn't match humanity's rate of innovation. This isn't just a battle, Red Scale realized. This is evolution in action. The humans had turned warfare itself into a form of accelerated evolution, each engagement teaching them new lessons, each victory making them stronger. The hunters, for all their physical superiority, had stopped evolving long ago. As the battle reached its climax, the human flagship transmitted a message to all hunter ships. The voice was calm, confident, speaking in the hunter language. Your time as the galaxy's apex predators is over. Surrender, and you will be spared. Continue to fight, and you will face extinction, just as you have brought extinction to so many others. Red Scale recognized the voice. It belonged to Admiral Stone, the human who had led the first counterattack 3 years ago. In those years, humans hadn't just learned to fight the hunters, they had learned to understand them, to speak their language, to know their thoughts. I was right about them, Red Scale said to his crew. In that first report, I sensed something different about humans. I just didn't realize how different they truly were. He opened a channel to the human flagship. This is Commander Red Scale. I speak for those who would choose survival over extinction. We surrender. Across the battlefield, hunter ships began powering down their weapons. The species that had dominated 3 galaxies for 10,000 years had finally met its match. But humanity's victory came with an unexpected gesture: mercy. The humans didn't destroy the hunter homeworld. They didn't enslave the species or force them into extinction. Instead, they offered something the hunters had never given their own victims: a chance to change, to evolve, to become something better. Your species will be contained to your home system, Admiral Stone declared, but you will not be destroyed. Instead, you will watch as we undo the damage you have done. The species you suppressed will be given a chance to grow, to develop, to reach their potential. And perhaps in time, you will learn from them as we have learned from you. Red Scale stood on the surface of his homeworld weeks later, watching human ships help rebuild what the war had destroyed. The night sky looked different now, not just because of the debris from the battle, but because the stars themselves seemed to hold new promise. We thought we were the ultimate predators, he said to a human officer working nearby. But you taught us something important. True strength isn't about being the strongest or the most fearsome. It's about being able to change, to grow, to become more than what you were. The human smiled. That's the difference between being a predator and being truly apex, she replied. A predator just kills, but an apex species can choose to protect, to nurture, to help others grow strong. As the stars wheeled overhead, the galaxy was changing. Human ships spread out across the stars, not to conquer but to free. They found the species the hunters had suppressed, shared technology and knowledge with them, helped them rebuild and grow. The age of the hunters was over. The age of humanity, not as conquerors, but as guardians, had begun. And the galaxy discovered that there was something far more powerful than the strength to destroy, the wisdom to know when not to.